All right.
Okay.
Take 3. This is Josh. I'm here with Era3TV to talk with Keith Richards today about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, see where the conversation goes. Just about how important this stuff is, how it's impacted his life, my life, anywhere we can kind of get that conversation to go. But let's just start with Keith. How did you first discover this, and why do you see it as something that's important?
Great. Thanks for having me, Josh. Well, the beginning would be I started mining before I ever bought any. At the time, I was kind of restarting my life, needed a new start in life. I did a lot of reading. So income producing assets was kind of on my mind. How can I make money while I sleep, essentially? I wanted to, at the time, be a missionary. I'm Christian, and I still wanted to be able to provide for a family. So that was kind of the drive. Anyways, I bought a miner. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. I got it. I forgot where I bought it. Hooked it up, and it was like having a vacuum on 24/7. Very loud, very hot. And at the time, my landlord says, "You're making Bitcoin," and she thought I was making physical coins. Yeah, but that was a great learning process for me. And after that kind of sucked me in, so I started doing the reading, and I was really lucky to stumble upon Andreas Antonopoulos. He has banging YouTube videos that really go a little deeper than, just a new asset class. He really, he's from Greece, and he's seen his currency collapse multiple times. And so that really motivated me. And so I bought a little, and then, only 2 months later, China banned it for like the third time. And so it dropped like 40%, almost overnight. And I'd done enough research. I go, oh, buy the dip. Yeah. So I bought the dip, and this was like August 17. So then we had the big run up through December, and number go up technologies, you hate to say it, but a great incentive to keep researching. And so you get hooked, and then you have your crash, and so you go through that process. But just started consuming podcasts and thought, man, this is a new form of money. If this was real and worked out, would change the world as we see it. I remember creating my first Bitcoin software wallet, mobile wallet, and having to write down your seed phrase, your 12 or 24 words, and saying this cannot be backed up. The software developer, on the app is like, we do not have a copy of this. This is generated with a random number generator on your phone. This is only, you are in your self-responsibility to secure this. I'd never had an app that did that. So I thought that was real interesting. And then that leads to learning about two-factor authentication. And I'm like, what is this two-factor authentication? Like, another form of security I'd never had to deal with. And it just kept going from there. The idea of digital rarity that we'd never really had before. And so you start to learn about the double spend problem. And I was lucky enough to have a little background in computers, and then a little background in finance, and a little background in psychology, and those all really helped, kind of suck me in and get me interested in Bitcoin. And since then, it's really my passion to educate people. I think Bitcoin is inevitable. when you really start to study it and realize if there's a better form of money out there that's global, decentralized, if it is what it claims to be, it's you can't not adopt a new technology. And what I mean by that is, like, when gunpowder was invented, you can't just say, oh, I'm gonna stick to the bow and arrow, or I'm gonna stick to the horse and buggy. It's like you can, but like you're gonna have to get off the road because they're gonna pave them, and I'm gonna have a car, and so I do think it's inevitable, and I think you look at all of the problems that we have today, and there's not a short list of them. And I think you can really trace a lot of that back to what is the base layer of human relationships. And a lot of it is the base layer of money. We have this term in Bitcoin that is fix the money, fix the world, which sounds a little hyperbole, but you really start to study Bitcoin and you see the inflation rates. I mean, it is... the middle end of June 23, and the Turkish lira just hit an all-time low against Bitcoin. So Bitcoin hit an ATH in Turkey where their currency is inflating. And you can look at any country around the world, whether it's Greece, Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, the Middle East, India, Africa. Like, where is inflation not? Where are people not being robbed of in front of our own face without us even knowing it? And so we're starting to enter this age where the regular person starts to understand the term fiat, where we used to think it was a car 3 or 4 years ago, and now we're learning there is fiat money because now we have the reflection of a new actually verifiable ledger that has created digital scarcity that we'd never had before. And it is an auditable ledger that can't be corrupted, and that's a leap of faith at first for people, because people don't believe that it can't be. If it's digital, it can be hacked, right? And so, one hand across the table, I would like to say to people is that I think it's very wise to be skeptical of Bitcoin at first, because we are inundated with scams and fraudulent activity, the untruth in our world today. Everyone is subject to so much attack that it's very natural to be skeptical of Bitcoin. I run into a lot of people that say, I want to hold. I'd rather have gold. I want something I can hold. And if you really examine that, they're looking for the properties of holding gold and what that can do. They recognize the scarcity of gold, and they want self-custody of it. They don't want to trust a third party or an exchange or have paper gold. They want to be self-sovereign. They want to have some security into the future, that they actually really own something. And Bitcoin takes these properties of gold and the properties of digital networks, and it's another factor of magnitude greater in efficiency for humans.
So with that, let's start first. Let's just have a quick, for anybody that's listening, very quickly, what is Bitcoin?
Cool. Thanks, Josh. I knew this question would be on the top of the list, and I still don't know how to answer it. It's a great question, and I think a lot of the times it could be likened to what is money, and is ubiquitous as money is in our culture. We still have no idea what money is, which I found very fascinating when I started to study Bitcoin. It's like that this technology, money is a technology to humans. It's so pervasive that we don't examine it at all. As long as it works, everything's all right. As soon as it doesn't work, we start to look for why and who to blame. But what is Bitcoin? You know, I could give you the building blocks of it, the blockchain and hashing functions and all the stuff that people want to turn their brain off and go, okay, enough of that video. You can watch YouTube videos and they'll do an adequate job of breaking that down on surface level. I'm more interested in what Bitcoin does for people, what it will lead to, what are the incentives that Bitcoin creates. I think that is very important, because if you think it's just an asset class or just a cryptocurrency or just a new form of payment technology, you're really, really missing it. And so what Bitcoin is I would ask, what is your use case for Bitcoin? What do you need it for? Or what problem does it solve? So if you're in a currency that is, we have the U.S. dollar, the world reserve currency, and so all other dollars are kind of pegged against it, and it's all kind of a debt-based monetary policy. It's debt money. There's no asset backing the dollar. It's kind of a promise for the future payment. And so it's what I'm getting is for the majority of people around the world, they want dollars right now, and because they don't want to experience that inflation that's based on a monetary policy that's already inflated. And when you can't save money, when money does not provide its primary function of preserving its store of value, you have to find other alternative ways to secure your future for your family. And it throws off all our cost analysis or risk assessment in the world. How do you know supply chains? We start monetizing real estate instead of using real estate as a commodity or a use case for human beings to live in. And so it really throws off all these incentives. We're no longer incentivized to save in dollars. You can't save in dollars because it's melting away. We think prices are going up, but really it's just all goods and services reflected against the unit of currency. It's the unit of currency that is exponentially expanding. And so I would say prices going up, it's not that corporations are greedy. Companies are supposed to be greedy. That's the nature of companies. And because companies have to provide a value for them to survive and be greedy. That's just the nature of free market economics. And we have this culture nowadays that we want to hate on capitalism, but we don't really have capitalism. Behind capitalism is that we have capital, but money, the dollar, that money is not capital because it's a debt-based system that's getting inflated away. You can't save in it. It's not capital. And so we kind of blame capitalism looking through the lens of modern monetary theory when so you have, Austrian economics versus Keynesian. And so, I don't want to go too deep there, but Bitcoin comes along and, like that Mike Tyson saying, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Yeah. That means, you can say one thing, but until a greater force of reality enters your world, until you have to adjust your world view. When you see your cost of living, your cost of fuel, your cost of food raised by 10% a year on paper, which is probably a lot more, it's like, so in 5 years, your retirement savings is cut in half when we've been raised to just view our account balance and, number of dollars go up. Well, if they purchase less, it's really the purchasing power. And so what is Bitcoin? Well, is it a payment rail? Do you need to send money to someone in another country without an intermediary, without Western Union, or it going from your bank to a company in exchange and to 2 other banks before it hits their account after 5 to 7 days, and they all shave a little bit off the top, and Oh, yeah. So the problems of fiat just really sell the case for Bitcoin if Bitcoin didn't already. There's always a little leap of faith in a new technology. And so, how many times has Bitcoin died but not been dead yet? And how many years has this been running? And what are its gains in purchasing power over a long enough time frame? And so anyone can say, I bought at 60,000 and, I got wrecked and, poor me. And I think it's really interesting that the West will probably be very late to adoption. Or, under the U.S. dollar standard, our money works pretty well. Like, we all have access to international markets and investments and real estate and first world banking, when we're not really the majority of the world, and these problems exist, and there will be a time sooner or later that we will experience these. We've started to see a glimpse of that with inflation. Inflation was never a topic until, you go back to the 70s or something, before I was born, and, it was kind of in the atmosphere of people. Interest rates were in the teens or whatever. Anyways, Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? Just to reiterate, depends on your use case. It is simple on the surface and elegantly simple, but the implications and what it can be used for, what it really is very deep.
So can you tell me what is the difference in Bitcoin and other currencies?
Sure. I'll do my best. I am just a regular dude. I just really nerded out on Bitcoin, and I think first to notice a pattern of everyone that really gets into crypto, it's usually Bitcoin or one of the top few, and then we start to dabble and experiment. We think we're late to Bitcoin. We start to see these marketing campaigns, and we think, why not? Why not use something that's newer or faster? And it's a tough learning curve, but I think a lot of Bitcoiners, a lot of OGs, they come to the realization that Bitcoin created digital scarcity, and you can only fix digital scarcity, the double spend problem, once. So it was a one-time path-dependent event that can't be recreated. And these other currencies, you might as well call them Bitcoin version 5. Even though they're called Ethereum or ADA or Ripple, whatever, it's another Bitcoin in a way. And then you're like, well, what are the advantages? What are the you didn't create digital scarcity again. Usually it's venture capitalists and developers that create their own blockchain that they pre-mine, have control over. It doesn't have network adoption. It doesn't not have the fault tolerance or the resistance to all of these things that only Bitcoin, before anyone knew about it, had the advantages of a few years. And so Knut Svanholm is a great author. He gave this lesson that any attempt at another cryptocurrency is actually a double spend attack on Bitcoin, where you already have digital scarcity. And this is another leap of faith. We really think that these other cryptocurrencies will have their use case. You'll have NFTs, and I really think that they'll all be based off of Bitcoin, either on chain directly, or they will be settled against Bitcoin. Bitcoin will be the reserve monetary policy of the world in the future. But man, they just will not compete Bitcoin. I think it has too much of a head start, that it is so anti-fragile in a way that it will adopt any attribute that the market needs. It will adopt the attributes of whatever cryptocurrency you're wanting to use. It's people seeking money. that they really want to go after these new things. Again, everyone thinks they're late to Bitcoin. We're at less than 2% global adoption. This thing is a child still. We also are under the effect of unit bias. I think we've all heard Bitcoin has a total scarcity limit of 21 million Bitcoin. Sometime around 2140 year, we will reach the maximum cap of Bitcoin. These Bitcoin are infinitely divisible. Right now, we use a standard of 100 million Satoshis per one Bitcoin. So you can buy $5 a Bitcoin. You can buy a penny worth of a Bitcoin. We cannot get caught up in, Ripple, I can own 50,000 Ripple. I can't afford one Bitcoin. It has nothing to do with your share of the network and what that network really allows. And, it's tough. It stretches the brain a little bit. But I tell you what, our kids are not going to use a currency that is surveilled, that is inflated. Inflation is such a pernicious tax. It's a hidden tax that we have no idea about. Why would they ever do that? They need permission from these banks that habitually break the law, a government that doesn't really care about them, doesn't provide a service. It's going to be no question to the next generation. And so we all need to get over this. I'm never going to use social media. I'm never going to text message. I'm never going to use email. I'm never going to need Bitcoin.
I used to think I'd never use Twitter, and then all of a sudden, now I use Twitter all the time because I got into cryptocurrency.
Yeah, all of a sudden you can go directly. Twitter was a great decentralizing tool for social interaction. Yeah.
What was I gonna say? It reminds me kind of like Gary Vee talked about all the stuff when I was listening to him very frequently about someone who's like, I don't want one of those smartphones, with the touch screen. I want my BlackBerry. I could touch the buttons. I can, all this stuff. And same thing with my money. Like I want to be able to touch my money and all those things that you talked about. And I thought that was interesting, the comparison that you drew between when you try to tell somebody about Bitcoin, and then they say that they would not want to have it because they want to be able to hold it. They want to have it. When they start to describe the reasons why they don't want Bitcoin, it's actually giving the exact explanations as to why you want Bitcoin. Like you talked about, the lines drawn between, being able to hold your cash, hold your gold, and it's yours, it's in your hand. And that gives them that feeling of possession, sovereignty. But the reality is there with those is, the inability to, say for gold, if you needed to have, let's say, if you're trying to store all your wealth in gold, right? Well, you have $1 million. If you have $1 million worth of gold and you need to, flee the country because you are, a refugee, because lots of people are dealing with that in the world. We don't experience that here because we're in America, but that's actually a pretty more common problem throughout the rest of the world. And you're not going to be able to flee with $1 million worth of gold. Where are you going to put it? How are you going to transport it? You're going to get it taken from you. You're going to be in danger. You're going to be slow, whatever any of those kinds of things are, or, even $1 million worth of cash, and then if that's in your bank, well, your bank account can be seized, so it ends up being that the exact reasons that, like you talked about, like people start to explain why they don't want Bitcoin for the reasons actually why Bitcoin is good and what it is there to do to help them. And it's explaining that to somebody that is actually a little tough, and everybody has to kind of come upon the realization of that for themselves. So I actually thought that was an extremely interesting comparison that you drew. So my next question was going to be, how do you see that the crypto landscape has evolved since the inception of Bitcoin?
The first thing that comes to mind is kind of an overvaluation in the broader space, the hype of blockchain, some similarities to the dot-com era, and I have to look at through the lens of my own self-progression and self-education. And what's interesting about Bitcoiners is we share very similar stories. You see similar learning trajectories and paths and pitfalls, and it's encouraging, I think. But really quickly, how does the saying go? We overestimate the short term and underestimate the kind of the long term, paraphrase. And so, real slow at first, and then all of a sudden, you see so many investment funds and hedge funds and these legacy kind of players that used to call it Bitcoin rolling out products, rolling out these exchanges, and really quickly, a lot of people eat their words when it comes to technology, specifically Bitcoin. Bitcoin requires some humility, which I really appreciate. You have to humble yourself a little bit to be able to understand something like Bitcoin, which I think is beautiful. We could all use a little of that in the world. For far too long, we've had to look at other forms of payment like likes and attention and these other vehicles and use them as currency because money doesn't really work as it has in the past, or what humans really want. So, your question now, how has I seen it evolved? Number of wallet addresses, nothing but up and to the right. Everyone that holds off of exchanges, up and to the right. Hashing power that secures a network, up and to the right. Every other metric, if you're not just looking at the quick buck, it's nothing but adoption. Yeah.
One thing that I can think of is that just since Bitcoin has started, there is now probably, like 20,000 plus other currencies claiming to be currencies. I actually usually refer to them as crypto assets because none of them essentially currently, to me, in my opinion, that function like any of our other currencies, where, it's direct right straight across spending power, things like that. But with I think I'm losing my question. But so there's so many others now. Is Bitcoin the only one that interests you, grabs you, and that you hold close, or is there other things that in the space that you like as well? Quickly, like other coins or other assets, like NFTs or the ordinals. Have you gotten into any of that stuff? Do you like any of those, or is it just Bitcoin?
Just Bitcoin. Yeah. The risk to reward is so asymmetric for Bitcoin in this space. I think so many potential projects are going to trend lower against Bitcoin. I think it's always possible that a company builds itself on top of Bitcoin, and then they provide value to the world at a greater degree than Bitcoin does in the short term. But I really don't see what any other blockchain does for people. You can upload a JPEG, and you can create a hash function or string, whatever, and get you can hash this picture. The picture is not rare. The ownership of the original, you can, we have hashing. We've had hashing for a long time. So you can create a ticketing service and leave it up to Ticketmaster to evaluate your NFT. It's just so many orders of risk that replacing the global monetary system is just so more advantageous to humanity that Bitcoin there's no reason. So many of these cryptos they're spun up on a computer, and they might have nodes, and they have some form of decentralization. I don't see the value proposition of them personally.
So, for the beginners that have hopefully come across this content, and it's like, sitting here thinking about like the questions that I've asked you. What is this Bitcoin thing? What is this crypto stuff? What is all of it? And they want to go search for information other than even just right here watching this video. Any kind of tips, any direction that you would give for somebody who's literally sitting on their couch right now, looking on their phone and saying, I'm interested in this, and I need to figure out where I'm supposed to go from here to figure this stuff out. What would you say to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. The industry standard, I think there's a very distant second. The Bitcoin standard by Saif and Namus is pretty much the Bitcoin industry. And then, you got a copy? And then the second one I mentioned already was Andreas Antonopoulos. Yeah, I've read that at least 3 times and listened to it at least twice. And then Andreas Antonopoulos, really specifically his talks on YouTube.
I've never checked him out. I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, he's beautiful.
Maybe I have, and I just don't know it.
Yeah, a lot of it's not technical. It's a lot of like what we spoke about. Why, why and how, and what's the reason behind all this. He gives so many great analogies of, technology. He's an old computer nerd, and he's the OG. Yeah.
So, what would be for a beginner, sort of some warnings, maybe, or insight that you can give them? What are the risks associated coming into this? The pitfalls, the things to watch out for, to be aware of, and things like that.
Not your keys, not your coins. If you don't have a personal wallet, a mobile wallet works, or hardware wallet is better. Sometimes that can be a little daunting for a beginner. But create your own software wallet. They're free apps. Really, most of the time, it's an industry standard. Your seed phrase is interoperable with other wallet apps. So even if your specific wallet app just disappears from the face of the world, your seed phrase, it's mathematically, linked to bits. Your words in your seed phrase is just a string of numbers, so they will work with a different wallet app. The point is, do not trust exchanges. Own your own Bitcoin. Be self-responsible for your future and your present. And then be careful of these temporary loss in purchasing powers. As we continue along this adoption phase, we're still very early. There will be volatility. It's volatile because it's alive, and it is an absolute free market thing. And so dollar cost average, by little bits over time, start to think of it as I'm plugging my time. I spend time to earn a salary or a wage, plug in a couple hours of my service I provide to humans, and take that reward and plug it and freeze it into Bitcoin. And over time, it will be rewarding. And so dollar cost average, own your own Bitcoin, do your own research, read more than you throw money around. You have to be not, how do I put it, allergic to learning. We're such in a day and age where we want immediate gratification, and Bitcoin rewards a low time preference. Be eternally minded about things, live for the long term. So watch your YouTubes, stay away from influencers a lot of the times. Go to trusted authors or OGs that have been in the space. Other than your channel, of course. But just as a rule of thumb.
Right. Not everybody is always out there with your best interests at heart, and you need to always remember that.
Yeah, everyone wants to separate you from your Bitcoin, and they'll sell you anything to get it. Those are really, all you need to know. Do your own research. Please do your research. Own your own keys, and then dollar cost average, and you're great.
And not financial advice, of course. What is the things in the future of the space with Bitcoin, financial or not financial assets, digital assets, stuff like that? What are you most excited about for the future of Bitcoin? What things are coming down the pipe? What really grabs your attention and says, I can't wait for this when it comes to Bitcoin. I can't wait for this when it comes to the future of money.
Sure. I think it's not technical. I think that natural adoption and technicals, the scaling, that happens as necessity is the mother of invention. What I'm excited about is the cultural change towards auditing, being responsible, being truthful, having accountability in life. All of these things start to kind of come out of the use of Bitcoin. And someone doesn't need to adopt Bitcoin. Their life will still benefit from Bitcoin. We have this thing called technology deflation, where it becomes easier to create value and service to people over time. Ideas are shared. Ideas are kind of free. Look at all the apps we didn't have 10 years ago, all the services. Prices should be going lower over time. We've kind of been tricked into, inflation happens and prices go up. A natural Bitcoin standard, it will just be advantageous to all human beings. Governments will start to have to be a service provider instead of this authoritarian type of, our way or the highway. And people think, governments won't allow it, they'll ban it. They'll actually have to start to compete for providing the better service, or else we will just exit. Talent will exit. Capital will exit. I can store my Bitcoin in my head, and I can take my value and unique talents anywhere in the world. Look at how quickly El Salvador turned around. I saw a stat the other day that said they had 0 murders in a year.
That's insane.
Very insane, especially from where they came from.
Yeah. Just because we're all human.
Yeah, right. Accidents happen. Yeah. So the future is things keep just happening as they are, and we'll have less debauchery, less fraud, less scams. You'll always have scams, but society won't feel like one big fugazi.
Yeah. What was I thinking here? Was something that you said in that made me think. Oh, so about what I'm looking forward to is like so going through this interview, right? We're talking about Bitcoin. You are a major Bitcoiner. I actually I don't own any Bitcoin, but I see I need it, right? Well, actually, it might have already worked prior to you even suggesting that, because just in recent days, just this week, I have come to the realization from the BlackRock ETF coming out and just what it's done to the market, listening to the implications of what this means, all of the past rejected ones, and the very unlikelihood of them getting rejected, and just like what this stuff means, and realizing that people think, right now that, not financial advice, got to always keep saying that like everybody has to, but, right now Bitcoin's at like $30,000, just shot right over it. It's sitting right about there. And I came to realize, like, there is a really good chance that this number might not ever be seen again. Or this could be a future bottom in the market, and this might be the lowest it ever goes again. And I might be missing out on my opportunity to get it in at, the such, great prices. Like, we've talked about, like, we don't even realize how much at the beginning of this whole thing that we are. There's so many different price predictions for this asset. And honestly, in the long scheme of things, right, like, none of these numbers seem actually too far-fetched. Maybe, just a matter of time, right? And so to me now, like this last week, I was like, wow, I'm actually starting to think, like, prior my thesis was I'm going to invest in some of these other ones so that when hopefully price go up, I can take that and wait for the market to turn again, the theorized 4-year cycle, and wait, and hopefully it'll go back down, and then I'll buy my Bitcoin. And it was actually only just this week with ETF that and all that stuff, because I was honestly just like, it's going to be, pretty far off. So anybody ever getting approved for that stuff. So I just like, whatever. And then now they're all of a sudden it's here, and I'm like, wow, I might never be able to get this stuff at this price ever again. That's I guess that feeling of FOMO, but it was, interesting to me, my mind shift, my heart change, where I was like, because I see how important Bitcoin is, I was investing into, oddly enough, other things so I could get more of that in the future, right? Because that's the one that seems important to me, most of all. I love all the different tech and stuff, but that has actually excited me, is that I'm actually considering now for the first time with actual earnesty, actual like conviction, being like, hey, now instead of putting this money into my savings account like I wanted to start doing, and while I'm buying all these other cryptos, I actually think I might start just sticking my savings into Bitcoin, because some people buy Bitcoin for, hey, price go up, but with some quote I'm trying to remember now, I'm forgetting it, but essentially I see it as a way of you are purchasing more freedom when you purchase Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the ability to hold on to your own money, like they say, be your own bank, and nobody can take it from you. Nobody can say you have to do this with it, you have to do that with it, and so I just think it's really excited me in these last week, even though it's not who I would prefer to be getting the ETF and all that stuff and the things I see with it, but it has excited me to a point where I'm like, wow, we could be coming out of the beginning stages of this, and I think I need to own it so I can have that freedom that's associated with that asset before it begins to really, from what I can see, take off and do its next big bang that it's going to do. So do you have, so just from the heart, from say to the viewers, like just I guess what is the best advice, what is the best essentially direction that you could point somebody in right now and say, this is why for me, this is the things I think you could consider, and this is essentially why it's important.
Well,
I hope that's not a repeat question.
I'll make it not a repeat because I would.
I left my notebook over there.
I know, that's all right. I would repeat the previous advice and the previous caution and pitfalls. The other thing I will add to it is that in my contention that the volatility on price is noise for the long term. I think in the future it will be 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, or 0.01 Bitcoin will equal 0.01 Bitcoin. We won't see the dollar valuation down the road. That does not matter. There is 21 million Bitcoin, and you either have part of that or you do not. And there's 7 billion people in the world today. And so we need to just expand our time horizons, and life is short, but we need to start thinking a little more long term, take care of our bodies, take care of our minds and our soul and our future families. And it's more important than just I'm late, I'm early, I'm gonna time this, I'm gonna time that. I think timing Bitcoin, everyone falls into that pitfall. We can't do that.
I really like what you said earlier. It's actually one of the main things that I'm wanting to find a way to point out as I continue forward here with Era3TV, is that people do seem to be allergic to learning. Right now we live in a, like you said, in a society where it's like we just want instant gratification. We're so used to things being done for us quickly, or like the bank. Let's just say, I'm not worried about my money in the bank because it's insured, by, the Fed and all this stuff. And, after you go down the rabbit hole, like we have, like you realize all the problems that are associated with that. And so, and now I'm losing my thought again. As I progress forward with Era3TV, I guess what I've been trying to say is that I am wanting to try to help break people of this allergy that they have and give them the right medicine for it, and inspire them to know, like, I am a regular everyday dude. I have not made it rich off of any of these assets as of now, but what I can say for me personally about them is that they have learning about any of them, specifically Bitcoin, starting it out, like, it has expanded my way of thinking. It has made me see the world from a different lens, and that is probably the most valuable thing that I can say I've gotten from Bitcoin itself, is how it has opened up my mind to the things that are taking place in the world in regards to money, in regards to people in control, in regards to my personal wealth, in regards to my capabilities when it comes to what I'm doing every day, when I'm going to my job, the paycheck that they give me, what does it amount to? And so I really hope that anybody watching this really gets the heart here from Keith, and really gets that knowledge there of everything that he's expressed when it comes to, the importance of this asset, and what it can do for you, what it can do for me, and even if you don't buy it, but at least learn about it, because learning is essential. Expanding our ways of thinking are important, and that is going to be the most valuable thing that you end up getting from it, bar none. And so I think I would encourage anybody watching this, really look into the things that have been talked about today, and expand your mind. Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to leave anybody with?
No, just thanks for having me, and I hope everyone got a lot of value out of this. I love talking about it, and I think those were amazing last words for us.
All right. Peace out, guys.